All right. Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. I have a special guest today. I have Sam Parker here today from My Credit Guy. You want to know who your credit guy is? My Credit Guy is Sam Parker. How you doing today, Sam?
I'm really good, Scott. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our goal is to expose consumers to experts in the industry. Sam, I consider very much an expert in our industry, in an industry that can be pretty shady. I mean, I think I joined that. I joined that because I'm in the mortgage industry. In the mortgage industry, credit repair guys, car dealers, we kind of get swarmed into this little group, but there's a reason for that. And the reason for that, the reason for that is that people are out there that aren't looking out for your best interest. And I've known Sam for a couple of years now. I've sent clients over to him. Real good friend of mine you actually helped. We joke all the time. He and I were sitting at a fundraiser, and he was like, I want to buy a house. And he had low 500 credit scores at the time. And I sent him over to you. And it took him a while to kind of get with the program. But last year he bought a house. His credit scores are now over 700, and he bought a house just this year in Orange County in California. So he brings that up to me. He brings that up to me all the time. So, you know, Sam and I are going to do a handful of these videos because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's just a lot of bad information and advice out there about credit. Now, within the context of our conversations, I'm a mortgage lender. I work with a lot of people that have credit challenges that are trying to buy a house. So that's going to kind of be the theme of some of this conversation. But this is general credit knowledge, know-how, tips, tricks, strategies. This is everything you need to know. Let's cut to the chase here, Sam. You sent out a video the other day, and I think you called it Life After Bankruptcy, and how to, what you need to do with your credit after bankruptcy. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. We have helped thousands of people that have bought homes after bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sale, deed in lieu. And I see this pattern over and over again of people file bankruptcy, and guess what? I don't want to touch my credit anymore because that's what got me into the situation in the first time or in the first place. And more often than not, people don't have bad credit. They haven't learned how to build good credit. So I had a bankruptcy, Sam. What's next? Is there hope for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And people need to quit looking at it like it's a financial death sentence, because it's the opposite of that. It's a financial rebirth. As long as you treat it like that, that's what it's there for. So, you know, I try to always kind of relate things so that people can understand. It'd be like if you were in really bad shape, somehow snapped your finger, spent $1,500, and all of a sudden you were in good shape. You wouldn't say, I'm not going to eat anymore. You wouldn't say, I'm not going to work out or use my body anymore. You would just do it wisely going forward. And it's the same way with your finances. You know, after a bankruptcy, it's not the time to clam up and do nothing. It's the time to do it the way that you should have the first time around. So, you know, just so that everybody understands kind of how the whole process works, if you don't mind me backing up a little bit into the bankruptcy, because, you know, we have some people too that are ashamed to go that route. And so first of all, what I want to do is remove the stigma from that. There's a reason that there's bankruptcy laws in place, and it's to give good people a fresh start. It's to give people that made mistakes a fresh start. It's to give people that had lots of medical bills a fresh start. It doesn't matter. Quit judging yourself, because it's just there for a purpose, right? And so what I ask people, if they're considering filing a bankruptcy, but they're on the fence about it because of pride issues, I say, how productive of a family member are you being right now to your kids, to your house? How productive of a community member are you being? And the answer is not very productive in either sense, because you're drowning in debt. That's all you're thinking of. It's running your life. So you go out, you file usually if hopefully you can qualify for a Chapter 7. A Chapter 7 is a total elimination of all debt that's not government backed or reaffirmed. Reaffirmed just means that, you know, if you have maybe a car loan that you're like, no, I mean, I'm good on that, I don't want it to be included in the BK, then you can keep that out in some cases. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy means that you don't owe enough money or that you make too much, where the court's not going to let you do a total wipeout. But for most of of what we're talking about here, it'll be in reference to a Chapter 7 because that's predominantly what people file. So anyway, you go out, you go to a bankruptcy attorney, you pay them usually somewhere $1,500, $2,000, and then usually within months, your debts that aren't government backed are gone and you no longer owe on them. The problem is that the creditors that you filed the bankruptcy on, they're not in a huge rush to help you in any way. So what'll happen is your credit report will, in a lot of cases, be kind of a mess. And there's a couple different levels that it can happen at. Number one, they can leave balances on there like the BK was never filed. So that's a pretty obvious inaccuracy where, you know, it should be a zeroed out balance. But a lot of times it's going to say included in bankruptcy, $0 balance. But then there's this rating system that consumers don't know about. And honestly, not a lot of lenders know about, and it's called the MOP rating system. Yep. And Scott, I know that you're efficient in it because you're an awesome lender, but there's a lot of them out there that when I talk about the MOP ratings, they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, which means rest and people are settling for home loans in terms that they shouldn't have to settle for. So the way it works is that there's this secret coding system in credit. It goes 0 through 9. 9 is, you know, the end all be all worst. It's a charge off, a profit and loss, you know, bad debt. It's you've stopped making payments on it and it's in collection status. And what will happen is when you file a bankruptcy, everything else to the naked eye and to the trained eye is going to look good. It's going to say $0 balance included in bankruptcy, and the consumer is going to say, well, that is what it is. You know, it's just as good as it's going to be. But what you're not seeing is behind the scenes that MOP rating, it's still a 9 and it should be a 7. And that doesn't sound like a big difference, but there's a monster difference between a 9 and a 7, especially when you file a BK. There's probably 10 items at least on there that were going to be included in it. So you got 10 different items that are all coded inaccurately. And basically, even though financially you got relief from that bankruptcy, credit-wise, you got next to no relief from it because everything is still rated as bad as it can be. So what a client needs to do is go through their credit report with a professional, either a mortgage professional or reach out to myself. We give free reviews all day long. We'll go through the credit report and we'll look at it, find the items that are miscoded or inaccurate in some way. And either the client can, if the client wants to take on a big old project and they know what they're doing or they think they do, they can try it on their own. That's no problem. I'll even tell you what's wrong on there and you can go after it if you want. Or, and I'm not trying to plug us in any way right now. I'm just saying it's a lot of work. Or we can go after those for you and get them either removed or updated to the proper status. And that's what needs to happen, is that you need to go through on a line-by-line basis and get things to actually report correctly. Then you need to look at positive trade lines, because you can't just go through life and expect to eventually borrow money, especially, you're over there in California. If you want to qualify for a home loan in California, you're going to be asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars for a home loan. A bank is going to want to see a resume. They're going to want to see, okay, you filed a bankruptcy, we can forgive that, but what have you done since then? How have you become credit worthy? And if your answer is, well, I crawled under a rock and I never used my credit ever again, they're going to say, oh, that's really not what we're looking for. We want to see you use your credit wisely. The way that you do that is that you reestablish a couple positive trade lines. Ideally, what I want a client to have after a bankruptcy within the first year is one installment loan, which is just code for saying usually an auto loan. That's going to be the most common one. And I want you to have at least 2 revolving trade lines, which are credit cards. And I know a lot of people after bankruptcy go, no, that's how I got into this problem. We're not going back down the credit card route. And that's not how you got into this problem. You got into this problem by misusing them or becoming overextended. Again, good things happen to bad people. bad things, sorry, bad things happen to good people, and good people make bad decisions. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
But again, not using the system or playing by the rules is not the route you want to go if eventually you want financing. So you need to make sure your credit report's clean, and then you need to reestablish credit right away, and then you need to use it correctly by maintaining low balance to limit ratios.
So let me jump in here real quick. I have a couple of questions. The first thing you said that I cannot stress enough, I don't think they should be called credit scores, because it has absolutely nothing to do with how well you manage your financial situation. It should be called a debt score, because the score represents how well you go into debt. And as soon as you know that, you kind of know the game now, and you know that there are rules to the game. Now, you mentioned something that I wanted to bring up. You said one installment loan. So it's what I see is really, really common is most people will retain their vehicle. That's the one thing that they usually retain through the bankruptcy. However, because it was included in the bankruptcy, if they didn't reaffirm it outside of the bankruptcy, they just do a pay to play and they just keep paying on it. What do you do in a situation like that? Because that installment loan isn't going to show up. So if you didn't reaffirm it in the bankruptcy, can you contact the auto dealer and ask them to start reporting it, or what would you do there?
You could try, but they're not going. I mean, I've literally never seen it happen.
No, I don't see debt reaffirm almost ever.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, and especially if it went through, if they didn't reaffirm and you continue to make the payments on it, and it happens with mortgages too. But I have never personally seen it. And be careful, because there are some rent reporting companies out there. They're like, oh, we'll get your rent on there. Unfortunately, rent rarely reports or installment payments. So my point is that sometimes those companies can also get installment payments to report in this situation, but they only report usually to TransUnion, and they're only factored into the Vantage score, at least in my experience. And that's not the score that a mortgage lender would pull. So if you're trying to get your scores in order for a mortgage, just know that about those rental reporting places. They have a place, but not usually in the mortgage, kind of calculator there. So what I would do instead is go to your bank and get some of them have like these savings CDs where it's like a savings account. You pay into it every month, and it's your money, but it's for the purpose of rebuilding credit. So a lot of times what I would do is tell people, go to your local bank, not your big chain banks, but your local, bank that's regionally owned or operated. And they're usually going to have quite a few options for you in terms of, establishing installment credit. And that's what you would need to do, is just get something going. Like, it doesn't need to be the end all be all of a car loan, of a student loan, of a mortgage loan. It just needs to be something. It's a piece of the puzzle that needs to be plugged in. Otherwise, your scores are going to suffer. Okay. So, all right, there is so much information, and we could literally geek out for an hour on this, but we're not going to, and I'm going to wrap this up. I want to pull a couple of takeaways out of this thing and talk a little bit about how people can get help. So the first thing that you had mentioned is go through your credit report line by line. What's the time frame for that? So once my bankruptcy is discharged, you file bankruptcy. It takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months for Chapter 7 to go through the process. Then you have like a little waiting period, and then your bankruptcy is discharged. When should I look at my credit report? As soon as it's discharged, as soon as you get those papers confirming discharge, you should look at it, because you need to see how everything's reporting, how the creditors have updated. Now, if you want to, just to be safe, you can give it a month after that discharge date to make sure that the creditors have received all of the information that they need to. But they were notified months ago that you were filing a bankruptcy. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to chime in with is that's what I notice is normally they stop reporting. If they're going to report accurately, they will do it as soon as you file the petition because that's part of the process. You notify all the creditors, I'm entering into the bankruptcy process. You can either come after me now or forever hold your peace is essentially what the process is. And they can either contact the court and fight it. Okay. So doing that, and again, I know you said you weren't pitching yourself. I'm not worried about that. The reason we do this is because I want people to hear what you sound like, because I think if somebody talks to somebody who's not professional, who's not experienced, it's going to be a totally different experience for them. It's going to be a completely different conversation. And my goal here isn't to say, hey, work with Sam. My goal is to say, if you can work with a Sam company, you need to. And I think the smart decision is work with Sam. But what it really is I want to expose people to what a professional is and what an expert is and somebody who actually cares about their clients and not numbers and sales volume and things like that, that you'll find with some of these big box kind of credit repair companies. And we're going to do a video on that as well. Last question before we close this up. What's a good time frame do you think normally? So what if there was a bunch of stuff that needed to be fixed? What if the creditors just completely screwed it up? Super ballpark, super high level. How long and how much should that cost and how long should it take to get that stuff fixed?
Yeah. So the good thing about it, even though the credit report can kind of be a mess afterwards with numerous items, misreporting or needing attention, it's still a fairly easy fix because it's cut and dry. There's no settlements that need to happen. This is very clearly wrong. It needs to be either removed, updated to an unrated status, or a 7 at the very worst in terms of the MOP. And so usually 2 rounds of disputes would be the max that we would need for a client in a DK situation. So you're honestly probably only looking at a 2 to 4 month turnaround. And 2 to 4 months with us, on average, our clients are with us for about 97 days. And that average bill is going to be $577 for a client. We don't charge any upfront fees, nothing due until the 30th day of service. And then it's $399 and then $80 a month. Or we have other budget plans available too, where we can spread that out a little bit more. So
that's awesome. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate this, Sam. We talked to a lot of people that are trying to buy a house after bankruptcy. And unfortunately, I'm having this conversation with them when they're eligible to buy a new home, but their credit's just not there. So hopefully this is a proactive measure. People can find this, right after they file bankruptcy. So we're not trying to do it at the last minute when you have to move or you're trying to buy a new home. So I absolutely appreciate you being here. I'm going to put all your contact information in the blog post here. And all of the stuff, it'll be on Facebook. It'll be on findmywayhome.com, probably be on YouTube as well. And I'll put all your information. So if somebody wants to reach out to you directly, they absolutely can. And you said you will review people's credit at no charge and just let them know what it looks like.
Right? Exactly. Yep, okay. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being here, Sam. I look forward to our other credit videos that we're going to do in the future. And hey, thanks for being who you are, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.